Okay, so station 5. Now, the other day when we were in class, I talked about f of x and you adding 1, that means you're going to move up. You're going to move up 1. So each one of these vertices, I'm going to move up 1. So I move this one up, I move this one, here, 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 and here. And then hopefully you're using a straight edge. I know I should be. And so there we go. How did this change the graph? All of the y values, or I want to say g of x, I guess, values moved up. Then it tells us to go over here, and all we're doing, I guess we would call it our f of x. We're changing this f of x and we're adding 1 to it. So -1 now becomes 0, 2, 1, 3. Am I adding correctly? And then 1. So we're taking the y and we're adding 1 to it. And that's all we're doing. Right here, if the original coordinate is xy, what is the new transformed coordinate? Y plus 1. Now, this next part talks about if I have a negative. Now, when we watched that video the other day, it said that we turn things upside down. So basically what this means is that we're going to reflect it over the x-axis. So instead of being down here, it's going to be up here. Then be 1 away from the x-axis, 1 away from the x-axis. On the x-axis, 2 away, so that's down here, 1 away, and then on the x-axis. So now, so what did this do? It reflected over, the x-axis. Now when I look at these numbers, if I look at this, this was the point 1, 2, 3, -1, -3, -1. Up here, it's still -3, but now it's a +1. So all I've done is I've switched or taken the opposite of the y value. Opposite of the y value. So now this, instead of being -1, it's +1, -1, 0, -2, 1, 0, and again, you're taking the opposite. This next one, here we go. Pick a different color. This one, on the grid, we're going to transform this. Now, when we did this the other day, didn't we say, I meant to make that an H. Didn't we say that it was negative in there? So isn't that the opposite? So I'm doing the opposite of what this says. So it says +1, but originally it was a minus. So we're coming this direction. This direction 1 time. What did I just do? Ignore that one. This one. There we go. Zoop, zoop. Now if I can get down to this one. And there we go. We moved the graph once to the left. Because, again, the original formula that we talked about the other day had an x minus h. So if we had talked about that, x minus a negative 1 would have been the same thing as an x plus 1. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to change oh, this is interesting. Negative 4 is now negative 1. Negative 3 is now positive 1. And then 0, and then 2, and then negative. Did I mess up on that? Negative 1, then 0. So we moved it over 1. Now I normally teach it a little bit different than this did, but instead of starting at negative 3 like we did on the original graph, did you notice how they switched to a negative 4 that they started with? Okay, good. What pattern did you see in this? Hopefully you saw that this moved over 1 time. I really and truly prefer it a different way, and I'll go over that in class. Now, what would you do this? I actually would say right here that we subtracted 1 from the x value and kept all the y values the same. Okay, now, last but not least on this part, just marked myself up, it says on the grid, draw the transformation. Now this time when you do it, it's inside, so we're going to be switching the x values. What that means is we're going to reflect over the y-axis. So I'm going to start from here. 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3. Over here, 1, 2 away, 1, 2 away. This one, 1 away, 1 away. This one, amazingly, stays right where it is. This one is 1 away, so it comes over here. This one's 2 away, so it comes here. And then I try my best to draw this freehand. Now on this, again, I really don't like this. I'm actually going to make this over here. The x and the, we're taking the opposite of the x value this time. So it would be 3. At 3, we're down at negative 1. At 2, we're at 1. At 1, we're at 0. At 0, we're at 2. At negative 1, we're at negative 1. At negative 2, we're at 0. Do you notice how all I did was take the opposite of these numbers? Oops. Well, I took the opposite of these numbers, and then I kept the f of x values exactly the same. So this would be k of x. The x values are the opposite. I can't spell opposite today. Oh, I forgot to do this one up here. What patterns do you see in the table? Oh, I showed you right there. Okay. And down here, I would say negative x, comma,